Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah waliyya salihin. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh khatam al-anbiya'i wa mursaleen. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala abdika wa rasulika Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barak wa sallam. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And surely Allah is the friend and protector of the righteous. And I bear witness that Allah is one and has no partners, and that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, is his servant and his last messenger. And may Allah always and constantly send peace and blessings to Muhammad, to his family, to his companions, to all those who call to his way forever. My beloved brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is again a great privilege to be with you here tonight. And as we have been reflecting in the past 2 weekends about what is happening around us in this winter season and the change that the people are going through with the weather and also with the new culture which is being reinvented and which is being brought back. And we saw a number of issues that came out. There were 2 key points that I began with 2 weeks ago. And I wanted to just emphasize these 2 points, and that is, these are forms of shirk. Now we know shirk as being shirk al-akbar, shirk al-asghar. There are major forms of shirk and there are minor forms of shirk. And the minor form, of course, is ar-riya, that is doing acts of religious acts to be seen by people. It's like doing your deen, you're showing off. Not just for Allah, you're also doing it for people. So that is a form of shirk. And shirk is when you don't do your action just for Allah, but there's something else. So it's sharing now, like sharika, which is a business. In the sharika is a partnership. There's a president, there's a vice president, secretary, treasurer. It's all part of one company. This is the sharika in Arabic. So the shirk is also when people assign the powers of God, powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to human beings or to creatures, parts of the universe, or to themselves. And there are 2 forms of shirk that the ulama have designated for us. One is shirk ad-du'a, and that is a type of polytheism that actually comes through your prayers and also when you invoke other than Allah, when you are sacrificing to other than Allah. So when the person is now reaching out to a force other than Allah and it starts to take the place of the Creator or share, then this is actually a dangerous form of shirk. And this is something which is coming about through the concepts that many young people are being fed with the general culture within the society. We remember even with the Christmas thing, that Santa Claus, right, this individual who has nothing to do with Jesus, nothing to do with Isa alayhi salam, and the ceremonies that we see, the opposite of what you'd expect from Isa alayhi salam, but yet this is the most powerful individual. And we even learn descriptions which are innocently being given to children. And as I was riding down the 401, coming here, sometime 10 days ago or so, was right around the time of Christmas. And they said on the radio, a type of jingle they call it, right? A type of song, but it stays in the mind of the child. And the song went, he knows when you are sleeping, he knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been good or bad, so be good for goodness sake. You ever heard that before? He's smiling, man, he knows it, right? Right, you know that one, right? That's being pounded into the minds of children in an innocent way. But break it down. If this individual knows when everybody is sleeping and when everybody is awake, who can know that? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who can know if we are all good or bad? Only Allah Azza wa Jal, who knows our hearts, because you can put out an image of being a good person but really be bad. And we have heard descriptions of the hypocrites, right? That the hypocrite shows you one face, but inside there's something completely different. So this image now being projected to the youth and bringing them something, bringing them gifts, this concept, and then this becoming a beloved individual. And from when the child is very young, you love this individual. Okay, which takes us to another form, shirk al-mahabba. And there is a form of polytheism for your love. Who do you ultimately love? And our love should be primarily for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in human form, it comes to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But even in the form of the love to the Prophet, peace be upon him, there's conditions. And we are so fortunate to have the Sunnah where the Prophet, peace be upon him, was very clear in how he dealt with people. And when they would come to him and say, a Bedouin would come and say, "Who are you?" And he would tell him, "I am the son of one of your women." That's all. Not Fulan, Fulan with this title and all these other things. He said, "I'm the son of one of your women." When they would come into Medina sometime and see the halaqah, and they would look at the believers, they would not know which one is the Prophet ﷺ until he began to speak. When he began to speak, then it was clear. But in terms of what he looked like, how he carried himself, right? He carried himself as a human being. And this is very important. That again, the love as an individual, right? That we have the love of the Prophet ﷺ, but still we reserve a special love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He is the creator of all of us. And so these are concepts which are creeping back into society in many different ways. And we should be aware of this as we go through the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and we need to try to be very practical in this. And I want to take an approach which is slightly different, to try to look at how Islam is inclusion. And the Prophet ﷺ, in his form of Islam, actually saw human beings as part of one family, and he also saw the prophets as one brotherhood. And so he related to the prophets and messengers who came, who were clearly mentioned to him in the Qur'an. There are 25. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah An-Nahl, verse 36, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And verily we have sent to every nation a messenger, that they worship the Creator, worship Allah, and stay away from Taghut. And the Taghut is the one who wants to be worshipped in the place of Allah. So it was very clear, and we saw it, how it is set up. Right? Those who worship the Creator and those who would worship other beings or other parts of the creation itself. And the Prophet ﷺ on one occasion spoke to his companions, and he said, the prophets are like a beautiful building. And the people came by and they looked at the building and it was so beautiful, but there was something wrong with the building. And that was that one lebina, one brick, was missing. Now imagine now you come and you see this beautiful building or this beautiful wall that's there, and then you see there's a missing brick. So you would focus on this brick, something's wrong. And then he said, I am that brick. And with me, the prophethood is sealed. So the beautiful building has been completed. So what he was saying to us is that he is not the whole building itself. That we are actually part of a community of people who have worshiped the Creator in all different societies. Recently, the Mi'kmaq people, Mi'kmaq Nation, who live, they are First Nations people who live in Newfoundland area. They were the first native people to meet the European explorers, Jacques Cartier and them, when they came in. They were the first ones to make contact. And recently, the Grand Council of the Mi'kmaq released information about their beliefs and their teachings. And they showed that their concept of God is Niskem. They use the word Niskem. And when they describe Niskem, it is as though they are saying the beautiful Asma al-Husna, the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see the same concepts that are reflected. So somebody at some point came to this nation and taught them the belief in one God. And that is in line with the text in Surah An-Nahl that is saying, Kulli ummah, every nation has got a messenger at some point in time. There is monotheism. So we are part of this manifestation, this nation of oneness of the Creator. We see humanity as one. So we're not different beings. We're all human beings, brothers and sisters. Different nations, different colors, different languages, to know one another. But we're all part of the same family. You see, so oneness, right? So Islam is supposed to bring oneness. It's not supposed to be separating us from people, but it should be bringing us together with people. And if there are differences in the people, then the difference is in their beliefs, but it's not the person themselves. You see, some people even start to look at races of people and think that this is a Christian race, this is a Muslim race, this is a Hindu race. It's the human race. It is Banu Adam. And anybody can enter into Islam. And so that is the concept that he brought. And the people of the book, Ahlul Kitab, the ones who received the message before, who had a specific message, was another relationship. So that's a closer relationship now. Even though there may be forms of disbelief that had crept into their understanding, but because the foundation is there, then this concept of Ahlul Kitab was expressed. And the Qur'an itself mentions Isa alayhi salam, for instance, 25 times. It mentions Al-Masih 11 times. It mentions Ibn Maryam 23 times. And in Surah Ali Imran, for instance, there are 83 verses which are focusing on straightening out the differences between the people of the book. Okay, so this is how we have to look at ourselves as the people of the book. Recently, in the recent propaganda that is used against Muslims to pump up the Islamophobia, they try to project Muslims against Christians. Like a Muslim is a natural enemy of a Christian or a natural enemy of a Jew, right? But this is the opposite of what it originally was. We are natural allies, right? We look upon ourselves as allies. If the individual now does something to break the alliance, then we deal with it. But in the beginning, the person is innocent until proven guilty. That is our understanding. And it's a very important one to have when you're dealing with people of the book. Especially we want sunnah now. We want just not sunnah in our dress, right? Or sunnah just in how we act in the masjid. We want sunnah in the way we think, right? The way we look at the world, our world view, the way we interact with people, the way we do our business, the way we set up our families. The sunnah affects all of these areas. And so this concept of inclusion, it's a very important concept. It's a very strategic concept. And we need to have strategies like this today, especially when we find ourselves under the gun, we find ourselves being pressurized and attacked in many places in the world. There are many people who are actually our allies, and they are prepared to be our allies. But if we don't respond, or if we don't act in a way, that would perpetuate this alliance, or would nurture this alliance, then it would never come about. I mentioned the other day that in December, around December 15th, when that individual in Sydney, Australia, he seized the coffee shop in the morning. The whole world now focused on breaking news. And we all woke up and said, oh Allah, please, don't be a Muslim. Don't be a Muslim. right? Breaking news. And there it was again, right? In the window was the flag. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And they projected it like that this is what he was. But what came out later on is that this individual was a sick man who was known by the Iranian authorities. He was a fraudster. And he ran out of Iran. He went to Australia claiming that he was oppressed by the Iranians. Came into Australia. And he was being accused. He was an accused person for the murder of his ex-wife. Also over 40 cases of sexual impropriety. He was a pervert. He was sick, crazy, majnoon, however you want to say it. And he lost control of himself, right? Did something crazy, right? But because he did that, because he identifies somehow with Islam, all of us are guilty until proven innocent. So now you're supposed to say to people, well, I'm not part of that, right? Instead of just walking down the street like normally. If somebody who is insane, a Christian person who is insane, who does something, who captures a building and kills people and whatever, and he's part of a Christian church, there have been many of them. This Andre Breivik, that was in Norway, right, who killed so many people. He gunned down like over 100 people. They don't show you pictures of what he did, right? This man was receiving information from right-wing extremists, right? He was a Christian nationalist, right-winger, right, and did not back up on his beliefs. He was open with it. But other Christians walk down the street like normal. They look like him, maybe even go to the same church, but they were not guilty. Okay? So this was a very pressurized situation for us. And in the midst of this, an Australian then made this hashtag and put out on the internet that he said, I'll ride with you. So that if there are any Muslims who feel under pressure, right, because they dress like Muslims, usually a sister, because a brother can hide, like we say, he can be Ali in the masjid and Al, right, when he gets on the bus, right? But, if he looks like a Muslim, he said, I'll ride with you. This is a Christian now, right? And 250,000 people also responded. And they said, I'll ride with you. So these were now not Muslims, different religions. They are common people who are allies. This is an alliance. This is an alliance, strategic alliance. And we have to be intelligent now. We have to have, the type of mind of the Sunnah. The thinking of the Prophet ﷺ is very important thinking. And I want to give you some examples of this. In the 5th year after the prophethood began, the Muslims were being persecuted terribly in Mecca, driven out of their homes, tortured, killed, all insulted, all kinds of things were happening. And the Prophet ﷺ knew that there were many people who had no support. And they didn't have any tribe. They didn't have direct support of Angel Jibreel alayhi salam, who was helping the Prophet ﷺ. And so he said to them, if you go to the country of Al-Habasha, there you will find a king who does not oppress anybody, nor does he allow anybody to be oppressed. It is a land of truth. Hiya ardu sidq. This is what he said. It's a land of truth. Go there until Allah decides and opens up a way for you. Now look at the thinking now. This is not a Muslim over there. This is a Christian. But he says the man is not an oppressor. So justice, he's establishing justice. He will not oppress you. He will not allow you, allow oppression. That's the way to go. And he said, and again, this is the Prophet ﷺ speaking. He does not speak from himself. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He did not speak from himself. He's a form of revelation. When he spoke about Al-Habasha, he said, Hiya ardu sidq. It is a land of truth. There is truth in this land. So he sent the believers across, not necessarily to another Muslim group, but he sent them to the brotherhood of Tawheed, where there is justice and truth. You see this thinking now. So when you think like this, you have allies. You have strategic alliances that you can make with your neighbors, with authorities, with people in other lands. Your society broadens when you have this type of thinking. And so they went across on the first hijrah into Al-Habasha, Abyssinia, Ethiopia, Eritrea. They went into this area and they found Ashama an-Najashi. And Ashama was his name, and Najashi was the title. Like you have Caesar or Prime Minister. In English they say the Negus. Right? I found when I went to Ethiopia and Tigray, they say Negash. Right? That's the real language he was speaking. And so, but his name was Ashama. And Ashama had a piercing mind. He was on the fitrah. And when the Muslims came, he gave them sanctuary. The Quraysh sent people afterwards to bring them back. But yet Ashama listened, and when, as you know, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anh was brought out, and he read Surah Maryam, Najashi cried, and all the people in his court, they all shed tears. And he said, there's no difference between you and me. You're safe. So sanctuary was given to them. Strategic alliance. The Prophet ﷺ wrote to him. Allah opened his heart and he embraced Islam. But as we understand from history, he did not necessarily announce to the people that he was Muslim. The Christians at that time, a battle was going on between the Unitarians and Trinitarians. There were those who were still following the teachings of Jesus, of Isa alayhi salam, and there were those who followed the Trinity, set up in 325 AD in the Council of Nicaea by the Emperor Constantine of Rome. That was the battle. Trinity worshippers and those who wanted the original unity. Najashi was of the original Unitarians, those who believe in one God. And he was struggling. He was battling. Even at one point, it was a big revolution going on in this country. And he even told the companions, get in the boats and get ready to go. If I am defeated, then leave. Go to the Prophet. If I win, you can stay. And there's a beautiful descriptions of the companions. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh is sent over the hill and down to penetrate and look at the battle. And he sees the battle, and Ashama radiallahu anh, he was victorious. And so the companions stayed. They stayed in these lands until the major call was made for the great hijrah, the great migration to Medina. Okay, and some historians say that over 25 of the Ethiopians, Abyssinians, actually were part of the Sahaba who left there and went to Medina. They integrated into the community. Najashi himself passed away. The Prophet ﷺ made Salatul Janaza lil Ghaib. This is Janaza prayer for an absent person. The first time it was done, which solidifies the fact that he was a Muslim. The point is, this is real interfaith, or what you call intra-faith. It's not just everybody saying, we're all brothers, I believe in God, you believe in God. No, this is real. This is in practice, in real life. So we in our relationships, if we find good people, we should make strategic alliances. Especially, in many cases, we're in a state of weakness. We find ourselves in this position, then we need to know how to make strategic alliances, and we need to know how to see where justice is there, where oppression is being, defeated. That is the land that we want to be in. The second example is after the Prophet ﷺ reaches Medina now. He reaches Yathrib and it becomes Al-Madinatul Munawwara, the lighted city. There were three major activities he was involved in right in the beginning. One, to strengthen the relationship of the believers with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is by building an all-purpose Islamic center, Masjid al-Nabi, alayhi salatu wasalam. He built the masjid. An all-purpose Islamic center. I use this terminology, right? Because sometimes people think of a masjid or a mosque as only a place you make salat and you run. But what he set up is an all-purpose Islamic center. Education, social welfare, even political decisions, town hall meetings, counseling, all types of things are going on inside of the building. Right? That's the house of Allah. It becomes the heart of the community where people go in for, for so many different things that they are in need of. And so that was the first point. 2, to strengthen the relationship of believers one to another. Al-Mu'akhat. And in this he paired the Muslims up. He paired people up so that you know more about your brother or your sister than just seeing him in the masjid. Right? You'll see another Muslim not feeling well or not doing economically well, pull him aside. How are you feeling? You feel sick? Let's go to the pharmacy together. I'll buy you what you need. Right? Think about other Muslims on a different level, right? That's the next stage of a development of a community, where we go from the superficial and we start to really become a family with each other, starting to know each other, right? That's the next stage. And the third stage was to strengthen the relationship of the believers to those of other faiths. How did he do this? He did it by a series of proclamations. Some call it a constitution. It may not be a constitution as you know it, one document, but it was a set of proclamations, a type of constitution, where he recognized non-Muslims in the Islamic State. He recognized them. This is a really important move. And he specified the Yahud, the Jews of Medina. He specified Banu Qurayda, Banu Nadir, Banu Qaynaqa. He specified them and showed they are a nation unto themselves. They have their own beliefs, right? And they'll be dealt with in justice in the society. They're part of our society. And you really can't find documents like this in the world at that time, of anybody giving rights like that to a citizen, whether it's Rome, China, Africa, wherever it is. You can't find anything like this, right? But he looked at the other people as inclusion, right? It's strategic alliance, right? So he saw them as part of the brotherhood of Medina. And this is very important in our thinking. As the Medina period then goes on, we find another very important relationship starts to come out. And that is with the Christians of the South. This takes us down to the 9th year after the Hijrah. And this is called Am al-Wufud. This is the year when the different delegations came to Medina. The Prophet ﷺ, they had consolidated. Mecca was open. He was like looking to the world now. They were sending out letters to the kings. And so now people were coming to Medina. And one group came from Najran. And this city had such a powerful Christian background. Remember now, Najran is toward the south, toward Yemen, right? Remember across where Ethiopia is and Yemen, and go back in the history, right? You'll see it in Surah Al-Buruj, and you'll see it in many places. It's a powerful history that goes on there. Najran was like the Kaaba of the Christians of the South. This was like their holy city in a sense. Right? Some of their top scholars were coming from Najran. So it is reported that they came to Medina dressed up in beautiful clothes. And they had gold jewelry on, and they came into the masjid in all their fanciness and everything. And when they came in, one of the first things the Prophet ﷺ did, he looked at them and he said, "We are simple people. This is not our dress. Right? So go change." So he made them take off all these fancy clothes that they had. But they were still arrogant. And you know what they said? They said, we were Muslims before you. Look how arrogant they are, right? They said, we were Muslims before you, right? Right? We had the book, right? We're before you. And he said, you lie. And he dialogued with them. He allowed a debate. So it was going back and forth. And the Prophet ﷺ finally said to them in the first phase of their debate, and remember these three things, we're going to go back to them. He said, there's three issues that block you from Islam. Three things. One, you claim that Allah has a son. Right? You're saying Allah has a son. This is blocking you from Islam. Number two, you worship or deify, venerate the cross. You worship the cross. You venerate it. Okay? And three, you eat pork. You eat lahm al-khinzir. So these three things is your problem. He's debating them now. Right? But he's recognizing they have the potential and pointing out the things that are wrong. They came back after this and they continued to argue. And then they said to him, don't you say about Jesus that he is the Word of God, which God gave to Mary and the Spirit from him? Don't you say that about Jesus? Right? He's this kalima, right? He's the Spirit, the Ruh. And the Prophet ﷺ then said, yes, we do say that. Okay, and the debate now slows down. And in the evening, the Prophet ﷺ was contemplating this, and a verse from, two verses from Ali Imran were revealed, 59 to 61. And in this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a way of approaching them and solving the problem. And the Qur'an then said, إِنَّ مَثَلَ عِيسَى عِنْدَ اللَّهِ كَمَثَلِ آدَمَ خَلَقَهُ مِنْ تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ قَالَ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونَ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكَ فَلَا تَكُنْ مِنَ الْمُمْتَرِينَ. It said, verily the example of Jesus to Allah, in the eyes of Allah, is like the example of Adam. He created him from dust, from clay, and then he said, be, and it is. This is the truth from your Lord. So do not be of the disputers. And the Prophet read this to them now. It's Allah talking to them. La takun min al-mumtareen. Do not keep arguing and disputing this. But look at the argument. Because the Christian will come to you and say, well, Jesus was born without a father. Do you believe that? And the Muslim will say, yes, I believe that. He said, okay, if he had no father, then God is his father. See the argument? Somebody's got to be his father. She married somebody. But the Quran then says, but what, okay, if you say that about Jesus, he has a mother and no father, what about Adam? Adam has no father and no mother. So what is he? See the argument? If you're going to worship Jesus because of that, then Adam is even more because he has no father and no mother. We could even add another thing, Mary. We could say also that Eve, Hawa, has got a father in a sense and no mother. You see? So the argument, the Quran then gives this type of challenge, right? And it's a way of approaching them, right? Keeping them inside, but trying to straighten out this problem in their mind. Straighten out this problem in their mind. And so they continued again. They continued. And so the Quran continued in Ali Imran. It was revealed and said, if they say that, then you gather your children and their children, your wives and their wives, gather everyone together and then call the curse of Allah upon yourself. Whoever is wrong, be cursed by God. That's mubahala. That's serious, right? So that's the level that the challenge reached, right? Let's call the curse of Allah. When the Najranis heard this, they say, that's too much. They were afraid of him, right? They could sense the Creator in him. And they said, we're not going to go that far. Because they knew, they were shaky inside. but they were too arrogant to admit it. And so they said, we're not going to accept Islam, but we will live under your rule and we will pay jizya. And the jizya is a tax that is allowed to the people of the book. Remember this term, you're going to hear it on CBC. Right? Jizya is a tax. In an Islamic state, Muslims pay zakat. Right? We naturally pay and we give it to a national treasury house. And the rulers, the society takes care of the welfare of the society. Just like we pay income tax. We have taxes in Canada. So when the snow comes down on the road and you wake up tomorrow morning and there's all this snow, right? All night there's people clearing the road, putting down salt. Who's paying them? They're not doing it because of the goodness of their heart. No, they're getting paid. Good pay too, by the way. Where does it come from? Our taxes. You see? So with an Islamic state, if there's people who are not paying zakat, but they're accepted in society, they should pay a tax as well. That's the jizya tax. And the jizya, in most cases, is less than zakat. Less. So this argument now about this being imposed upon people, unjustly imposed upon people, this is how you defeat that argument. You show them everybody pays taxes here, and this is a poll tax, which people of the book and other people will pay in a Muslim society because they're not paying zakat, within our society. Eventually, the Najranis accepted Islam. They went back to Najran. Interesting though, they said to the Prophet ﷺ, can you send somebody back to us who you love? Allah loves him and you love him. And this person can solve our problems because we have some financial problems. And we got to pay jizya now. So we need somebody with a clean mind who can help us straighten this out. A really trustworthy person. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, he stood by the Prophet hoping to be the one. Right? But the Prophet looked away and he said, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiallahu anh. So he sent Abu Ubaidah. And this is another interesting point because Abu Ubaidah was probably one of the most committed Muslims in the ranks of the believers. Frontline person. Totally committed, but yet he is going to go amongst Christians who did not accept Islam. Think about this. They did not accept Islam, and then he will help them sort out their financial affairs. Using an Islamic mind, right? That's a form of dawah too. Because with Abu Ubaidah's presence amongst them, right? Then eventually they all said, we love this religion. Look how we were treated. We were not forced to be Muslim, right? We were given respect, right? They start thinking about these three issues. These three issues. And remember these issues. How he told them, your problem is you say that God has a son. Think about this Christmas season now, what's going on now, right? Also, you worship the cross. And we see the crosses all around the places. The cross, in a sense, the putting Jesus, right, as the son, this is like shirk, right? It's a general category of shirk and kufr. The cross is like a symbol. So these symbols also you have to watch out for. And that's the way they get us with the Christmas trees and mistletoes and this and that. All these symbolisms come in, and we'll go into Easter season as well, right? We got Valentine's Day coming, Easter, right, which inshallah we'll discuss later on, right? But symbolism, that's your second area to be aware of. Third, eating pork. And look at it now. Many of the Christmas tables, when you eat, you got to have ham on the table. I studied and lived with the Muslims in Spain, and when, after almost 500 years, Muslims were driven out of Spain and tortured and killed, and the Catholics took over, one of the ways that they would, test a person, every single meal that the Spanish would eat has wine and pork. It's on the table all the time. Even in some shops, if you go to Granada right now, and they have to hang a piece of pork. They have symbolic pieces too. You have to hang pork in front of your shop. So by the pork, they know that's a Christian there. And they will test the Muslim. They invite you over to eat. They look at your meal, every meal that they're eating. Right? So they're testing. Look what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. But the deep part about this that came out, in listening to some, very, solid scholars in Islam. Very interesting point I want to share with you tonight. And that is, remember these 3 points, right? One is about, they say that Jesus, the shirk with Jesus being the Son of God. The 2 is the cross, right? And the 3 is the pork. In the signs of the last days, in the books of Alamat as-Sa'ah, you will see in the discussion of Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam. Abu Hurairah reports that the Prophet ﷺ said, Wallahi la yanza'anna ibn Maryam hakaman adalan falyukassiranna as-salib walyaqtulanna al-khinzir walayada'anna al-jizya ila akhir al-hadith. This is in Sahih Muslim. So in this section of the hadith, the Prophet said, by Allah, wallahi. He said, by Allah, the son of Maryam will descend as a just ruler. Hakaman adalan. Okay, that's the first thing. He's not God, right? Remember the 3 things. He's not the son of God. How is he coming? Hakaman adalan. Secondly, he will break the crosses. He will break the crosses. Remember the second issue that the Prophet ﷺ said to them. Your problem is you worship the cross. What is Jesus going to do? He's going to break the cross. And 3, he will kill the swine. He will kill the swine. He's going to finish with pork. That's the 3rd point. And these are the 3 issues that came up in the debate that went on with the people of Najran. It's a very interesting connection, and it's something we need to consider when we are talking to people of the book, when we are interacting with people of the book. We need to consider this in our relationship, that we are all part of one family, but there are some that have problems. And we need to be very clear and very open with the problems. And so this is the real relationship. It's not an artificial one. It's a working relationship, a relationship of alliances, but also clear differences. If they do not come forward, then we say we are of the Muslims. We are very clearly of the believers. So I want to leave you with these thoughts. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I want to open up the floor. I think we have about 4 minutes left for any immediate questions that anybody has concerning this subject. Yes, brother.